Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the stream. Thank you very much for joining me this evening. I will, of course, be your host, Callum from English Shooting, where we talk about all the past week's shooting news and topics. It's also an opportunity for you to get involved. There is a chat box. If you're watching this recorded, then there's a comment section. Don't be afraid to have your opinions heard, whether you agree, disagree. If you have any questions, any topics that you think that we should be discussing, then please feel free. I try to answer as many as possible throughout the stream. And of course, make sure that you've hit that like button. It really does make a difference. It's free. It takes a fraction of a second. Just hit the button for me. And if you're not already and you enjoy these streams and the other videos on the channel, then please make sure you are subscribed. So I hope you've all had a fantastic previous week and you haven't, you've managed to not get blown away in the current storms that is hitting the UK, particularly the south coast of the UK. Fortunate for myself, because that's where I live. But you know, we call it storm, hurricane. It's like no. I've been, I was out in America couple of years ago when the hurricane hit Florida there, or just before. Yeah, that's a proper storm. This is, it's like storm light. Back to 2008 webcam quality. Well, I would check your internet connection, Daniel. We are fully prepared. We are on the new gear. I've put 50p in the meter, and we're even the right way. So you know, it's all downhill from from here. So the main topic, when anything pops up about 3D printed firearms and the NCA, all you need is a little bit of Basque in there, and that would be my perfect. But 3D printed firearms and the NCA, it's just too difficult for me to resist talking about that. So I saw this article pop up. It's gone all over the place. The Guardian was the least ad heavy of the of all of the newspapers for me to show you guys. But yeah, the NCA calls for possession of 3D printed gun blueprints to be made illegal. Now, there's a few prerequisites with this, in the sense that for many years, if you're a long-term supporter and viewer of this channel, subscriber, then you will know that I've been saying for many, many years that this is a problem that is going to grow much faster than any organization, NCA or otherwise, can get in front of it, right? It's pretty much impossible to stop people 3D printing firearms. It's pretty much impossible to trace it, and versus say more traditional manufacturers or more manufacturing methods, or more say traditional criminal methods of obtaining firearms. It's very, very easy to slip under the radar with this. It's now it's inarguable that 3D printing is accessible to everyone, not just the price and the cost of 3D printing and buying a 3D printer, but also the usability. You don't need to be a genius to use one, and most criminals aren't, so it certainly opens it up for them. And I've been saying for years, prior to the first conviction, which we had 3 or 4 years ago now, prior to the first one being sort of used in crime, I was saying this is just going to grow and grow and grow. And the NCA have sort of made the first move, let's say, in their idea of trying to prevent it. Is it actually going to do anything? No. Personally, now I take great pride in trying to understand and memorize all of the various complex areas and niches of our firearms legislation. I was already under the impression that it was illegal for you to be in possession of sort of any blueprint to make a firearm. Certainly the files that you use with 3D printers to make 3D printed guns. That obviously doesn't seem to be the case. And where this sort of comes from was previously, as far as I understand it, in terms to get a successful criminal conviction for attempting or for the manufacturer of firearms, there were sort of three key elements. You needed to have the means to do it, which would involve having the files, having the equipment, and the ability, your own ability to do it. You needed the yes, it was the ability to do it, the means to do it, and the intent to do it. And I was trying to find in the black and white of the law what it specifically says, but it was three key features, and I think that's roughly it. And the whole intent thing that still scares me, because I've got the means to be able to do it. I've got the ability to be able to do it, and it's very difficult to prove intent. Do I want to be able to make whatever gun that I want out there? Absolutely. Lawfully, or caveat lawfully, because some people, like to think that, even working under a registered firearms dealer, that suddenly I'm going to start making illegal firearms with 3D printed. No, we've got the license for that. They would be lawful. But as an individual, do I want to be able to make my own guns and have handguns again and semi-autos and all of that? Absolutely. Do I intend to do it and break the law? No. But how do you sort of prove that? And could police twist it so that they give the impression that it was your intent to do it, and maybe can convince a jury, and that gets very, very grey. But this is the first sort of stake in the ground, and despite thinking that it was already illegal to be in possession of them, to be honest, I think the first thing is that they've, excuse the pun, shot themselves in the foot, because what they're doing here is telling you that it's not currently illegal to be in possession of these files. So what do you think that anybody that had any hesitation previously to go and explore the internet and have a look at these files and download them and potentially use them, if they had any hesitation before, this is just a white flag to say you can actually go and do that legally, don't worry about it. It's almost like the funny story of when the government announced that they were going to ban on a certain date drinking on the tubes, on the tubes of London. And it was like, hang on a minute, you mean we can legally drink on the tubes now? And there was literally massive tube parties. Nobody knew about it, and then suddenly everyone knew it was legal, and then it was bedlam. So it's almost like, yeah, just maybe not publicize some things. But their first step into curtailing, preventing, stopping, whatever, the use of 3D printed firearms and manufacture of 3D printed firearms is to suggest that or to call for the possession of these files to be made illegal. Back to, is that going to do anything? No, because first of all, it is not difficult at all to get hold of these files. I'm not going to go into details of what websites and where and all of that for obvious reasons, but I reckon in 5 seconds I could, again, I've researched this previously and I've made videos on it. I sort of know where to go, but I think anybody with half a brain, a laptop, a computer, and an internet connection, and the ability to search on Google, is going to be able to find these and download them pretty instantaneously. So if it's suddenly illegal to be in possession of them, but it's so easy to obtain them, well, you're just not going to download them unless when you go to use them. You're not just going to stupidly have these files sat on your laptop. Again, we're talking about criminals here, so maybe you will. I don't know what hurdle or what prevention this would necessarily have when it's already so easy to go and get the files instantaneously. Again, if you're the sort of person where you're going out there and illegally 3D printing firearms, your aim is to be in possession of an illegal firearm. You are not worried about getting caught with the files or caught with the 3D printer or caught with the ammunition. What you're trying to achieve is far worse in terms of criminality than any of the steps before it. before it. Obviously, it's not necessarily just all about prevention, but also well, it's about police. It is about crime prevention, isn't it? The main cause for this is that they've seen a dramatic, as the Guardian likes to put it, a dramatic fourfold increase in 3D printed guns being seized. And yeah, when you jump into the numbers, yeah, there's little dramatics here. The UK agency seized 17 3D printed firearms last year, up from 3 in 2021. So at the moment, yes, it's a fourfold increase, but we're not talking any significant numbers here. This is not at the moment widespread. This is not at the moment, um, in the scheme of things, anything to truly be worried about in terms of the use now. Again, I think fast forward a few years, and it is going to, it will be the main cause of issues and headaches for our police and various crime agencies. The head of the National Crime Agency has called for ministers to make possessing 3D printed gun blueprints illegal after a fourfold increase in seizures. Now, again, this is just a sort of twisting of the narrative. Well, not narrative, twisting the narrative, the twisting of the facts that they love to use to justify any changes in law. Because yeah, when you say there's a fourfold increase in seizures, it sounds scary. When you actually say it's gone from 3 to 17, that's, you know, that's still an anomaly within the data. It's an outlier. 17 3D printed firearms were confiscated by police last year, up from 3 2 years ago. The government is considering legislation, and we have asked them to take forward legislation that would outlaw the ownership of blueprints and would change the definition of what a gun is. I think that's probably the underlying more scary element to all of this. Change the definition of what a gun is, so that something that is part built is a gun, right? So again, I find it hard to believe that any law-abiding shooter out there has half cobbled together guns that are off ticket. But this in itself could be used in an incredibly dangerous way. What is a part-built gun? Even within the UK, you're allowed to have certain components that are off ticket, that are not, so you already need to have a license, the certificate, to be able to have a pressure bearing controlled component. In the UK, that's usually the receiver, the bolt, and the barrel. Everything else you can usually own without any sort of certification. So take an AR-15 here within the UK, both the upper and the lower are restricted controlled parts, unlike just the lower out in the US. The bolt group would be, and bolt face would be considered a serialized control component, and then of course the barrel. But things like your buffer tubes, stock and spring, your stock, your grip, your fore end, and any other ancillary components, trigger, mag releases, safeties, firing pins, all of that can be bought off ticket with no restrictions. So if they open up your drawer and they find all of those parts, because again, the law doesn't need to be redefined unless they are going to start including all of those other accessories. If they have, at the moment, if they have a bolt and it's just a bolt, they're going to prison. If they have an upper or a lower, they're still going to prison. If they have a barrel off ticket, they are going to prison. So in terms of redefining the definition of a gun and something that is part built, to me, that just indicates that they are definitely, well, they're only just going to include more. So if they open up your drawer and they find a grip, a stock, a buffer tube, a trigger, a mag release, a muzzle brake, a fore end, are they going to start saying that that is a part built gun? Are you going to start going to prison for these accessories? So it may be something to keep an eye on, that they are trying to slip something bigger under the radar to make it even harder for legitimate lawful firearms owners here within the UK. Obviously, one of the big areas was one of the biggest guns when we talk about illegal firearms is the FGC9. Somebody was found in possession. I think this individual was actually found in possession of multiple of them. He was sentenced to 5 years and 4 months after being found. Oh, maybe it was these guys that had multiples of them. So there's quite big, well-known cases now of people getting caught with viable 3D printed firearms. Factories are now being found, and this is where we're seeing, a crossover. Previously it was just the converting blank fires, right? That it was the main way for criminals to get hold of guns rather than smuggling in actual guns into the UK. Now that they're crossing over to 3D printed parts and 3D printed guns themselves. We've got a project called Interknow, which is pulling together everyone who is relevant in the UK to the 3D printed to 3D printed firearms. I mean, I won't take that personally, uh, to try and share knowledge, not at least so that when your average police officer goes into a house to do a search, they find something and they actually recognize it's a 3D printed firearm, not a Nerf gun, bigger said. And then when they see a 3D printed, they know what to look for around the materials, because not surprisingly, it's not what they're expecting, what they are trained on. Big R said 3D technology has also become far more sophisticated that an entire gun could be printed not only in plastic but even in metal along with ammunition. Now, whilst this statement isn't incorrect, because I've shown plenty of times on this channel the viability of full metal 3D printed firearms, currently the machines that are capable of doing this are hundreds of thousands of pounds. And unlike the FDM, the squirty hot plastic printers, it's not something that you could easily conceal. Going into most people's houses now, you would not be surprised, or most people probably wouldn't even batter an eyelid to see a desktop 3D printer. I would be pretty significantly surprised if I saw a £250,000 SLM machine sat in someone's living room. Like, that is potentially more of a sign, and making it sound like, oh yeah, you can just print in metal at home. We're not currently there. You can kill things with these, he said. In the early stages of 3D printed firearms, they were as likely to hurt the person firing them as they were the person being aimed at. That is no longer the case. The government was considering outlawing the ownership of blueprints, putting them effectively on par with possession of a terrorist manual as evidence of lethal intent. Again, that is a significant step up. Now, there are plenty of legitimate reasons for why somebody without a firearms certificate, without a registered firearms dealership, that would be in possession of firearm models. Look at all of the companies that make accessories. Now, ignore Maglo because we have all the licenses, but there are a myriad of airsoft companies, of holster accessory companies that need the models of the guns to be able to extrapolate the dimensions, the shape, the form, so that they can make their product around it. There was a period where I made 3D printed trophies, and that required me to get a model of an AR-15 lower. Now, as soon as I had it, it's filled in and was not a viable model to be used, because again, I'm not stupid and I'm not just going to leave gun files lying about on my computer, even though really it's not not an issue. And as the NCA have confirmed, it's not illegal. So there are all these legitimate reasons for why people would go out there and have them. Suddenly, 5 years ago, when it was lawful, let's say that you've downloaded this and it's in your download folder and you've forgotten about it, and suddenly the police radio house get hold of your laptop and find this gun folder, and they're going to start charging you to the same level as a terrorist when we've just been through the whole fact that this is very unlikely to prevent or even deter anybody from actually doing this? It sort of asks more questions that it's sort of solving at the moment. At the moment, if you go in and find somebody who has got a 3/4 printed 3D firearm with blueprint, with the blueprint, it's not a prima facie offense, said Biggar. So we want to change the law so it is the case. No, 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 no. I'm sorry. This justification does not hold water in my eyes. Now, I'm not necessarily saying I'm against it's going to cause massive disruption to the industry and people's lives if they made it illegal to possess the files overnight. So it's not something that I'm devoutly against, but I think there needs to be a reason to do it. It takes an incredible amount of time, money, and effort to change the law, and if we're going to change the law to prevent people using 3D printed firearms in crime, to prevent them from manufacturing illegal firearms for criminal activity, then we should change the law in a way that is actually going to make a difference, or focus that energy, focus those efforts, the funds, the resources into preventing it through more boots on the ground, through more other traditional, let's say, old school policing, not just, oh, we're just going to make more things illegal because that obviously solves everything. Let's harker back to the fact that every time that they've restricted firearms within the UK and brought in more legislation, firearms crime has increased. So again, laws don't tend to work and prevent firearms crime. But I'm sorry, in terms of convincing a jury that somebody had, back to those sort of three pillars, the ability, the means, and the intent to manufacture an illegal firearm. If you kick down somebody's door and find a 3/4 3D printed firearm with the blueprints, you know, I would say that that pretty much seals the intent of wanting to do it. Of course, you could say, "Oh no, I never intended to do that last 25%." No, I'm sorry. There is our criminal legal system is severely broken if that is not able to prove intent and improve, criminality. He also said the blunt and increasingly widespread rollout by major tech companies of end-to-end. Oh, this is another thing. It sort of completely takes a left field and starts talking about child sex abuse, which is fantastic. So yeah, that's bit of a sudden change of topic within the article and what he was saying. So yeah, are they actually going to roll this out? I wouldn't put it past them. Oh, let's get it so you can see the main headline again. Are they going to roll this out? Probably. It wouldn't be the first time that they've rolled something out that has been, let's say, non-effective, that has been seen to be doing something that actually doesn't achieve anything. Let's harker back to the offensive weapons bill and banning the Mars and lever release. I'm sure everybody's sleeping much safer at night now knowing that those are off the street, even though they were never used in a crime. But not forgetting, whilst the NCA does do a fantastic, very hard job dealing with some of the most serious criminals here within the UK. For those that don't know, NCA is the National Crime Agency. They're the effective equivalent of our FBI here. They deal with the most serious organized crime. So it's not a job that I necessarily want to do myself, and I have a lot of credit where credit's due for doing a very difficult job. That being said, this is also the same organization that ran a campaign to tell everybody that yes, possessing illegal firearms is a crime. So I mean, in terms of maybe their validity and how seriously you may want to take their suggestions in preventing the law or changes to the law, when they come out with humdingers like possessing illegal firearms is a crime, yeah, they haven't really put their best foot forward there. You know, they are there to be on the front line preventing crime. It's always a very nervous feeling when our police agencies and law enforcement agencies start to get very political and start to push forward, you know, the changes in law. It's like, no, 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 you're there to enforce the laws that are there, not to start changing them. That's why we have MPs. That's their job. Is the MP going to start coming and, you know, tracking down burglars and stolen cars? No, because that's not their job. You know, or preventing people smuggling, you know, copious amounts of drugs or guns across the channel. Um, but yeah, possessing illegal firearms is a crime. Like, yeah, that's still gets me, that one. Um, and then, like, looking through things, as a bit of context, yes, there's a little bit of, say, scaremongering within that article, but the NCA, by their own admission, firearm crime is currently lower than the long-term trend and remains suppressed. So it's like, well, hang on a minute. The You know, our firearms offences are lower, but you want to start changing the law. It's like, doesn't that say that what's in place is somewhat working to an extent? Levels of firearm crime in the UK remain among the lowest in the world. However, criminals continue to engage in firearm um, firearms enabled crime. Although there was another, where is it? I brought it up earlier. Oh, I've got to find it. NCA. I was searching through, doing a bit of research, and another absolute. Here we go. This is it. You know, talking about, you don't say NCA. Yeah, they also came out with this. Oh, is this the? Oh, so this is a initiative led by the National Crime Agency (NCA) and National Terrorism Police (NCTP). Illegal guns only help terrorists and gangs. Well, first of all, yes, of course, illegal guns help terrorists and gangs. They sort of, like, it, yeah, you know, like a racing car helps Lewis Hamilton. It's like, you know, spaghetti and meatballs. But illegal guns only help terrorists and gangs. I was like, no, no, I think there's a lot of other criminality out there that guns do really, really help, other than just terrorists and gangs. So sometimes it is a little, it can be a little difficult to take what the NCA pushes out there seriously. Levels of firearm crime in the UK remain amongst the lowest in the world. 4.5% of firearm offences from 21 to 22 involved fatal or serious injury. Firearm crime is currently lower than the long-term trend. There were 5,750 firearm offences recorded in England and Wales in the year ending March 2022. This was 35 more, 0.6 increase than the year ending March 2021, which was the lowest level since the year ending March 2026, according to the Office for National Statistics. I mean, it still sort of says it's increasing, but anyway, they're saying that the general gist is that it's down. This sort of made me chuckle as well. 9% of firearm offences from April 21 to April 22 involved a discharge from a lethal barreled weapon. So, you know, they love to herald these massive figures. You know, 5,750 firearm offences. But first of all, when you boil it down, you know, the definition of a firearm here in the UK, that can cover a BB gun, that can cover an airsoft gun, an air gun. It can technically it could involve somebody throwing a bolt at somebody or a moderator at somebody. when you actually boil it down, sort of live fire, lethal barreled firearms, um, it's a very, very, very small number. And then, actually discharging from a lethal barreled weapon. But this is, again, this is skewed because what is a lethal barreled weapon? You think, oh, that's obviously a 9mm handgun because that's what they've put a silhouette of. But there are many other things that are considered a lethal barreled weapon here, which isn't necessarily what most people would regard as a firearm. So I think there's in and amongst this, there's a lot of, what is it, lies, and statistics, right? I think that's how the saying goes. There seems to be a lot of, oh, this is, we need to bring in more legislation now because everything's gone up fourfold. Well, yeah, from what, 3 to 7 to 17. Like, I don't think we should necessarily be pulling our hair out just yet. In the same breath, I've been the one saying for a very long time that they do need to do something. They need to get ahead of this. Is making the blueprints, the 3D printed blueprints for firearms, a criminal offense to be in possession of? Is that going to prevent any serious criminal from doing it? No. Is it going to make it? The only thing it's likely to do is make it easier to prosecute people, right? It's going to make it a little bit easier to prosecute a potential illegal firearms manufacturer. But it could also be used to make it easier to prosecute people that had absolutely no intention of manufacturing an illegal firearm, 3D printing an illegal firearm. The people that have legitimate interest and requirements to have those sorts of models. And then if we're redefining the definition of what a firearm is, that's then going to change the definition of what a 3D print or what a blueprint of a firearm is. So, to what extent can they prosecute you for being in possession of firearm blueprints? If you have the blueprint of a grip, of a stock, of a firing pin, of a magwell, of all the other various aspects and components of a firearm, to what degree do you need to be in possession of a full gun, or a full gun's worth of blueprints for you to be prosecuted? It's as they've said, it can be difficult sometimes for even the police to recognize what a viable illegal 3D printed firearm is compared to the likes of a Nerf gun or a water gun. How are you ever going to get a jury to understand if it's a viable model? Right? That I think that's probably the biggest question, right? We have this bar, maybe that's what they want to change in terms of the definition of a firearm. We have this bar that something needs to be a lethal barreled firearm. That is the definition of a firearm here within the UK, a lethal barreled weapon, right? Yes, I don't. They're not weapons if they're for sport and all of that. Don't worry, I'm with you with that one. But that's just the lawful definition: a lethal barreled weapon, something that can kill by discharging a projectile out of a barrel. Now, in the real world, in the physical world, you can test that. You can demonstrate that. You can measure that and quantify that. Can you quantify if something is a lethal barreled weapon by its blueprints, by its 3D model? That is that's almost impossible to prove. What material was it going to be made out of, or what material could it be made out of? What manufacturing method were they going to use, or could they use? All of these things have massive implications to whether a product, a model, is going to be viable in the real world versus it existing in the 3D virtual world. It's a very slippery, dangerous scope and slope to go down, and it's never going to be in our favor when they start redefining what a firearm is and how much of it needs to be assembled to be classed as a firearm. It's all very odd. And let's not forget as well, when we actually go into the current guidance, I think that's highly relevant to the conversation. They do now mention 3D printed firearms within the firearms guidance. Now, to note that this is not law. The law on firearms here within the UK is so complex and convoluted that they literally need to have a whole guidance document so that people are able to interpret it. And when I say people, I don't just mean you and I don't mean sort of normal people, enthusiasts, hobbyists, even professionals in the trade. This is what the police have to use to try and interpret it. This is what the CPS and the courts have to use to try and interpret our law. That's right. I'm sorry, if a law needs a whole guidance document on it, it's not a clear law, and that's why there's been obviously a big argument to tear it all up and sort of start again. So it specifically mentions, this is in the firearms law guidance to the police. What is the government doing to prevent 3D printed guns being used? If someone were to possess, purchase, manufacture, or sell a firearm or its component parts otherwise than in accordance with the requirements of Section 1, 3, and 5 of the Firearms Act 1968, they would be liable to prosecution. And this is the crux of it. It's already illegal to have a firearm off ticket. It's already illegal to possess, purchase, or more importantly, manufacture a firearm without having the relevant certification or licensing. Why do we need to start redefining things? Why do we need to start making it even more illegaler? It's like somebody's already in possession of all of those parts. They are manufacturing firearms. Prosecute them under that. Interestingly, that it's not the only mention of it as well. Another section: 3D printed firearms, the manufacture, purchase, sale of 3D printed firearms, ammunition, all their component parts is fully captured by the provisions. The definition of a firearm in the Act includes any component parts. There are actually separate definitions for component parts as well. 3D printed firearms are subject to strict control in the following respects. Under Section 1 of the 1968 Act, it is an offence for an individual to possess, purchase, or acquire any component part of a firearm without a certificate. And again, don't get worried. There is, I'll find it in a minute, a specific definition for what component parts are. Under Section 3 of the 1968 Act, it is an offence for a person who is not a registered firearms dealer or their servant to manufacture or possess for sale by way of trade or business a component part of a firearm. Under Section 5 of the 1968 Act, it is an offence for a person to possess, purchase, acquire, manufacture, sell, transfer, possess for sale or transfer, or purchase or acquire for sale or transfer a component part of a prohibited weapon without the authority of the Secretary of State or the Scottish ministers in Scotland. And when we go component part, oh god, there's a lot. There we go. Oh no, Section 8 defines the relevant component parts of the weapons as a barrel, chamber or cylinder, a frame, body or receiver, a breech, block, bolt, or other mechanism for containing the pressure of discharge at the rear of a chamber, but only when the item is capable of being used as part of a lethal barreled weapon or a prohibited weapon. Oh, that's very interesting. Oh, it's only it's capable of being used, not necessarily. You don't. I was just thinking, if you only had a bolt, then it's not capable of being used, but it is capable. It's still capable of being used if you had all the other parts. So, yeah, that is the definition of component parts within our law. So everything else, every other aspect and part or component of a firearm is not subject to any of our firearms law. So there we go. Let me know what you think. I've seen the comment section going blurring away, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people going, you can't viably 3D print a firearm. Oh, it just explodes. Like, yeah, okay, all right. Have your Horlicks and go to bed, Grandma. Um, I'm going to go with that that legislation will be ineffective because, as Mr. Universe said, you can't stop the signal. For those of you that don't understand, the whole thing about can't stop the signal is it sort of highlights why 3D printing firearms is sort of changing the dynamic of sort of law enforcement with firearms and legislation with firearms, right? Because this whole premise of you can't stop the signal, you can't stop people from putting stuff out there online. It's in some cases it's incredibly difficult to track, control, monitor, and prevent. In the physical world, you can physically stop somebody. You can, if somebody is there with a load of firearm components, they're there with a load of firearms components. They can't just disappear and slip under the net. And this whole thing about you can't stop the signal is this premise that you can't prevent people from putting these blueprints out there. You can't stop people from having access to them, because that would mean preventing them from having access to the internet entirely. So you can't stop it. And that's why I've been saying for so long why this is going to be just year on year a bigger and bigger problem, because as far as I understand it, as far as I can feel, you can't stop it. And of course, that is quite literally what the NCA is trying to do. They're quite literally trying to stop the signal of 3D printed firearm blueprints from being in people's possessions. And I completely agree, Joshua. It will be ineffective. It will be incredibly hard to monitor and prevent. Susan Carter, good evening, Canon. Pressed the button already from wet West Yorkshire. I think the whole of the UK is is wet at the moment, to be honest. But thank you very much for joining. Daniel, 720p. Yes, that might be the maximum output currently of the Restream, but I will talk to Arian about that and see if we can increase it, because I do like Restream. It's bloody easy to use and relatively foolproof. Relatively. Ben Peters Brown, illegal to have blueprints is just pre-crime. No way they can justify such a move with outright Chinese-style internet monitoring. Which is that's pretty much what I was just saying. Like, you can't stop this or prevent this without just restricting people's access to internet entirely, or spying on people so heavily that we end up with Big Brother, well, more of Big Brother than we already have. The only way they are going to be able to combat criminals is to give citizens the ability to counter on equal terms. We will move away swiftly. How can they legally ban information over the internet? And I get what you're saying, and that's what I've just said. Well, what I've said is it's very hard, difficult, or nigh on impossible for them to prevent information over the internet. Banning it and making it illegal, oh, they can do that to anything. The government could technically make breathing against the law, right? They can make anything illegal and ban anything if they really want to, and they generally do. But again, that comes to actually practically doing it. You're not. It's just not going to happen. Are 1522s not 3D printed, or is that injection moldings? The 1522 is injection molded polymer, but the 3D print, the 1522 is one of the best retorts that I have to people that say, "Oh, you can't make a gun out of plastic." Well, yeah, tell Glock that, tell Smith and Wesson that, tell Keltec that. God, I could probably be here for a very long time talking about all the different polymer firearms that are out there, and not forgetting that the plastic that comes out of a 3D printer for without, for all intents and purposes, is the exact same um, plastic you're going to get out of, or you could get out of, an injection molding machine. The the printer that we use at Magload, always have this here, it always comes in handy. This is majority 3D printed, right? It's one of our, if you don't know what it is, then you obviously haven't been watching the channel for that long. It's the Magload Nexus Pro quad loader, and apart from the back plate, obviously the springs and the bars, you've got magnets, you've got brass inserts, but everything else is plastic. Now, can you could you reasonably say that that looks 3D printed? There's no layer lines. That looks, and this is what we sort of pride ourselves in doing. That looks to, unless you are really into your 3D printing, you're really into your manufacturing, to 99% of the people out there, that looks like a traditionally injection molded part, right? Because that's not a squirty hot plastic 3D printer. That's, printed on a £250,000 worth of machinery. That's not something that sits on your desktop. That's something you need quite a big room, um, and other ancillaries to be able to even operate and work. This is nylon 12, right? It's a polymer that is used within engineering, left, right, and center. The fact that that starts life as a powder and it's sintered together, it's as strong as a 3D printed part, and in some cases can be even stronger, because you're not limited by the manufacturing process. Whatever you design can be put into production, right? Whereas with an injection mold machine, there's a whole lot of considerations to make to the design to make sure that it's actually manufacturable. I think it's either Airbus or Boeing that was doing, was it generative, is it generative design? I think, let's go, I think it's Airbus 3D printed wing. Or there's this image of my head. It looks incredibly organic. I'll see if I can find it. It's this like organic sort of lattice structure. I can't. I'll say 3D printed plane. Let's see if that brings anything up. No, that's just all model planes. But the general premise was that using this almost like organic structure, because you weren't limited to traditional manufacturing methods, you could make what was optimally strong. So you removed a lot of material, and it became lighter and stronger, even though it was the same material. It's a fascinating. I guess it's a prototype because I can't find any um, any pictures of it. I'm mixed with this. I can see the reason for it to be made illegal, but I feel like owning them and then acting on them in the UK is another thing completely. I would say I have to completely agree with you. Um, I can see the reason for making it illegal. I can see that there is a case there, some sort of justification. Um, but yes, having them and acting on it is very different. Are they going to start locking people up for having 3D printers? Are they going to start locking people up because they've searched these websites? They've been on these websites where these files are available. Are they going to start arresting people because you've got some sheet metal, a vice, a hammer, and you know um, an angle grinder in your shed? It's, again, you start getting you soon start sliding down to, oh, he breathed, that was an offensive breath, like that breath could have killed somebody, so we're going to lock you up. Carl Volt, the government will always try, no matter how much sense it makes. Yes, absolutely. Gez, you can buy a car without a driving license, but it doesn't mean one can drive it. I don't know where you're sort of going with that. Are you saying that we don't need gun licenses because, doesn't just because you have a license, no, just because you don't have a license, I mean you can use it? I don't know. I don't quite know what point you were making with that. Wouldn't possession of said files come under the Freedom of Information Act? I don't get the relevant with that. The vast majority of civilians with 3D printers are making knickknacks, so you can't outlaw 3D printers, nor can they stop people getting these blueprints. So they need to fund a compromise. I don't think it's necessarily about funding a compromise. It's about move on and do some sort of traditional policing. Go kick in some doors. Like, stop. There was this whole thing we talked about it not too long ago. Might have even been last week about Pia Clerter. She made a very good point. They made possession of all sort of ammunition component parts, I think, illegal out in Sweden. I'm pretty sure it was Sweden. They made more stuff illegal, right? Because they were going into people's houses. They knew they had guns, right? They couldn't prove it. They couldn't find them, but they knew they had guns because they had all of these ammunition components lying about the place. So what they went and did is made it against the law to be in possession of those component parts that they kept finding, thinking that the criminals are still going to leave those parts laying out. Now it's an offense. So no, what the criminals did is they hide all those parts with the guns, which they were successfully concealing previously. So now when they kick in the door and go into somebody's house, they can't find any evidence, right? Then they start to doubt themselves. Oh, we thought there was guns there, but we can't see any trace at all because you've effectively pushed it further, further underground. Is there a case actually of doing that? Here, if they push too hard on, a compromise on what you're allowed to be in possession of or what you're allowed to have access to, if they kick in somebody's door and they find they don't necessarily find somebody in the act of 3D printing, they can't necessarily prove the intent, but they find a model, they find the 3D printer, and maybe they find a couple of other bits to do with a gun that they can lawfully be in possession of. What that confirms to the police what that certainly suggests is that those people should be watched. Those people maybe need to have a bit more attention applied to them than others, right? So we might be on the right track here. You make everything illegal, nobody's going to leave any breadcrumbs for you, right? So in a weird way, it could make things even harder for the police to prosecute or find these criminals. Oh, wow. Okay. So that's the relevance that you're saying, the Freedom of Information Act. It creates a general right of access to all types of recorded information held by most UK public authorities, including us. Very, very interesting. So actually, if the police are in possession of, are you saying if the police are in possession of 3D printed, 3D blueprints for 3D printed firearms, that you could actually freedom of information request them? Like, thank you. Yeah, again, very valid point. How would the law distinguish between a screw for a guitar and one for a semi-auto AR-15? Absolutely. Again, you start getting into the realms of just making absolutely everything illegal, and just make breathing illegal. That will get rid of the criminals. Absolutely, that's it. Callum for PM. We just make breathing illegal, and that will kill all criminals. That will kill off all criminals. Hypothetically, if these files are made illegal, what about the cosplay gun prints. Would they come under this file type? Despite not shooting projectiles, it's still a gun print. Absolutely. This is, again, what I was saying earlier about there is sort of a defined level of if something is actually a lethal barreled weapon. How do you make that same quantifiable distinction with a 3D model? It just comes down to interpretation. Oh, we think this could be a fireable, we think this could be a viable file that you've got here. Well, yeah, so like, files, sticks and stones may break my bones, but the STL files of 3D printed guns will never hurt me. Like, it's, yeah, that should be a t-shirt. I'm going to get that made to a t-shirt. I swear the amount of t-shirts that I've said I'm going to make in the past, we must be into the hundreds now. No step on SNEC. If metal 3D printers become commercially available, most people use it to make things like small car parts. So it's not something that should be automatically considered suspect. Absolutely. When we get to the point where, metal 3D printers, like the cheapest one that I'm aware of is like 15,000, 20,000 pound. You're just not going to go even at that, the cheapest level. It would be out of place to see a 20,000 pound bit of equipment sat in somebody's house, right? I know there's probably people out there that have multiple things in their house that are worth 20,000 pound, but the majority of people probably don't. So that's a bit, and that's at the cheapest level. You start getting to a machine that's 100, 200,000. Like some of these metal 3D printers are £500,000. When you start seeing that sort of equipment in someone's bedroom, I would be asking questions, honestly. And yes, further down the line, when metal 3D printers are £1,000 and you can order them off Amazon, absolutely, there will be a point where it is normal. What I was saying in relation to that is, at some point, no, at this point now, it would be odd. Yeah. Talking about knives. I'm sorry, but anybody in the anybody in the United Kingdom should be able to own any knife they want for any reason, and we need to stop having a knee-jerk reaction that goes and punishes law-abiding citizens. Yeah, absolutely. In terms of knives, it's like, you can do as much damage with a 10-inch kitchen knife as you can do with you know, one of these zombie knives or a flick knife or an assisted knife. If I could choose somebody coming at me with a 5-inch, like Benchmade assisted opening knife versus like a 10-inch kitchen knife, or maybe a cleaver or a saw or a machete, which are all perfectly legal to own, I'm going to pick the small assisted knife any day of the week. Uh, so it's, yeah, there's just no, I'm just a little bit salty when I don't actually, I took it off when I got home, but when I was on my honeymoon, I ended up picking up a Benchmade knife to sort of mark the occasion. And it was going to be it's actually like the most expensive knife that I've ever bought. So it was going to be my nice knife, the one that I more look at than actually use. But because of what it signifies, I use it every single day. That's the knife that I use at work, that I have on me for work, and I can't take myself to like not use it now. But what I'm really salty about is there was this beautiful assisted, well, it wasn't even assisted opening. It was push button, it flew out. And when the guy showed me it, it was just like, I think it was like half the price of the one that I ended up buying. But yeah, you press this button and the knife shot out the top, and I'm like, oh my god, "Oh, I want one. Oh, I really wanted want one." And he's like, "Well, get it. If you're," he was like, "Hang on a minute. You're looking at these two knives, and that's the cheapest one, and you're almost talking yourself out of it. Just get it." And I'm like, "No, no, no. You don't understand. I'd only be able to have it out here." Um, yeah, that's not something that I want to get into the fun of games of trying to smuggle back into the UK. Thank you very much. I do not have a good track record with customs. Uh, as I'm sure many of you have heard the story previously. Um, let's have a try. I'm trying to get through all your comments as quickly as possible. I'm apologize if I have skipped through any of yours. I did see one person flag up here that had actually mentioned Rick B. Seen a reference book in an old library that had an AK blueprint in it as a breakdown of how simple the design was. Is that now going to be an illegal book? Uh, again, I get the point that you're making, but that's not what you can't. There's a significantly bigger step from taking pages in a book to having the physical article in your hand. The reason that 3D printers are so powerful is that once you've got that file, it's send to the printer, go, right, and the printer does all of the work, 99% of the work for you. It takes less time, less skill, less resource to be able to print something on a 3D printer than actually make it through traditional manufacturing methods. As a quick interruption, and I just looked, we have been going on for quite a long time. Um, uh, some, some some things never change. Just a real quick one to please go, if you haven't already. I talked about this last week. I've just put a link in the chat box for you guys. um Really, really appreciate it. You don't need to be a UK PSA member. You don't even need to be a practical shooter to do this. This is again all about the HSE led consultation and the imposing lead ban that they want to bring in. um if you've literally, it's going to take you, I did it on stream live last week in like 30 seconds. Please just go through and complete this form. We're already getting like a ridiculous amount of responses. I think to getting um we're actually getting close to getting more responses on this form than there were responses for the original HSC consultation, which really, really helps us in terms of an association as the UK PSA. um, Protect specifically practical shooting, but it will be used to protect all shooting, to be able to fight off the sort of unjustified lead bans that they want to bring into place. So please follow that link. It's just a few questions. It's multiple choice. Anybody can pass. This is an unfailable test. Please go through and fill this out for me. And yes, Carl, thank you for reminding me of that as well. After you've done that, or maybe before, maybe even during, if you can multitask, don't forget to like the stream and make sure that you are um, not you are subscribed. Uh, do you think that the whole process of how you have to get a firearm certificate in this country is very convoluted and should be reformed from top to bottom? Um, as Carl Volt said, valid complaint, not the subject for tonight, though. No, it's not. But like, if you want to talk about a topic, we'll talk about a topic quickly, and I'll try to answer all questions as possible. So, does it need reform? Absolutely. Should it be reformed? Absolutely. Will it be reformed in the way it needs to be if a reform takes place? Probably not. And this is the issue. It's the be careful what you wish for. I don't think there's any certificate holder out there, any lawful firearms owner out there, yeah, any avid shooter out there. I don't think there's any one of those groups that doesn't think that there needs to be a reform of our firearms licensing uh, process, right? Just look at the state that it is in at the moment. Now, in fairness, I don't necessarily think the process is convoluted, right? It is by and large a fairly simple process. You go online, you download a form, um, you fill out that form with what I think is fairly uh, sensible questions and information that you would have to supply to have your suitability assessed. You have an interview. They consult with your GP, or you have the GP form. They consult with your club if you're going down the firearm sport route. All of that I think is very valid and very sensible. Um, there could be massive changes need. Does it need to be a face-to-face interview? Now, there's a lot that you can get from somebody from going into their house and having a little bit of a snoop and all of that. And yes, you need to check the security, and that usually has to take place in person. But to streamline processes, could it be done via the modern age of Zoom calls and Skype and Google Teams and all of that, right? Could that streamline it? Why do we have to segregate it to each different county? It could be incredibly streamlined and having one centralized firearms licensing system. You download, everybody goes to the same website to download the same form and supply the same information, rather than having to work out that it's done county by county by county, right? So yeah, I 100% completely agree. Well, I feel quite strongly that there needs to be some reform. There needs to be change. And whilst it isn't on the subject for tonight's stream, I do like to cover as much news from the past week as possible. And this is something that I was planning to discuss. So, talking about firearms licensing. Now, this was done last year, right? And I commented about it last year. So there's a couple of prerequisites that I just want to get in first, right? I think this is fantastic overall. The general premise and idea of it is fantastic. Um, Absolutely fair play to Sportsman Gun Center for getting this in place. To getting a firearms licensing department to effectively expedite variations for the purpose of getting your Black Friday bargains. It's great. It's great business. It makes great sense, and it effectively induces a great service to an extent from our firearms licensing. This is how it should be, right? The being able to, oh great, there's going to be these great deals on some guns, so I might take advantage. Actually, they're doing a deal on a 223, and I've got a 308 at the moment. Can I quickly vary it for a 223? Yeah, absolutely. That's the way it should be. So I've got absolutely no problem like with Sportsman getting this in place, and I would imagine is the main driving force behind it. It's fantastic, fantastic business sense, initiative, and service for the shooting community. But what in the merry Lord Jesus is Devon and Cornwall firearms licensing smoking? Like, we know what the state of their firearms licensing department is like. It has been plastered all over national news, the state of their firearms licensing department. So why are they giving any time other than clearing their act up, giving any time up other than to clear their act up, to get their service levels up and stop kicking in people's doors and taking away their guns for no reason and no explanation at 2 o'clock in the morning, right? It is absurd that a firearms licensing department in as bad a shape as Devon and Cornwall would even consider doing something like this. And I think overall it is taking the royal piss. They're almost like laughing at people at this point. They're almost like laughing at certificate holders and firearms owners that they would even think that it would be a good idea. And I said this something maybe not as strong, but something similar to this last year. What has got me really pissed off is that I was sent something earlier from a group it's been doing the rounds on Facebook, and it got shared to me, right? At the same time that they are offering rapid variations and this phenomenal service so that a company can sell more guns at Black Friday, they are sending emails to current certificate holders to tell them that their renewal will not be completed before the expiry date. Any guns not shared with another person will be with a live certificate will need to be lodged with a registered firearms dealer or a person with a valid certificate in respect of firearms unused authorities for the guns concerned. Failure to do so will place you in unlawful possession of the associated shotguns and firearms, an offence under the Firearms Act 1968, Section 1. This may have a negative impact on your renewal. Once lodged, you must inform firearms licensing that your shotguns/firearms are lodged. Sorry, what kind of nerve do they have sending people this sort of message to tell them that they can't do their job? They are not adequate, resourced enough, or capable to do the main necessity of renewing somebody's current certificate. And what I found out furthermore to this was that the person that this is relating to is a farmer, right? This isn't somebody that just wants to go and put holes in a bit of paper on a Saturday afternoon. This is somebody that relies on their firearms for their livelihood, to be able to do their job, to be able to put food on their table. And Devon and Cornwall have the nerve to turn around to people and say, nah, mate, sorry, you can't do your job anymore because we can't do ours. You're going to have to go and lodge your guns with somebody else because guess what? We're spending more time trying to do a publicity stunt for a commercial entity doing rapid Black Friday variations rather than renewing your certificate so that you're able to put food on your table. Absolutely disgusting. I think they should have been ashamed of themselves previously. And a year on, they are still sending these letters out and they are still doing these publicity stunts. And that's all it is. That's the only reason that they do these things. Again, absolutely no problem with Sportsman Gun Centre at all. I think the premise of it is fantastic. But Devon and Cornwall right now should be turning around to Sportsman and going, we are really sorry. We need to get our act together. We're not even capable of doing renewals on time at the moment. There is no way we could think about doing we could do rapid variations for Black Friday deals. Like, I think it either just shows either how much they don't care, how incompetent they are, how unprofessional they are, or any mixture of the three. Like, that really just shows the just complete ignorance that some of these firearms licensing departments have. Like, get your priorities in order. When you have stopped sending emails like this out, when you're actually doing the bare necessities of your job, then you can start doing publicity stunts, right? And I still find it astonishing that these firearms licensing departments are, turning up to shows. Seeing Devon and Cornwall at a shooting show, it just makes me feel sick, right? It's like they shouldn't be there. They have more to be doing than sat at a shooting show or doing rapid variations um for for Black Friday, right? I'm not saying that like having firearms licensing departments at shows again is absolutely brilliant, right? When it's in addition to them doing their job in the first place. That's a bonus. That's a cherry on top. That's a look, we're doing our job so well, we can afford to spend a few days out of a show to have a bit of face-to-face interaction with you, right? To do a bit of PR. But you only do that once you've got your bread and butter done. And Devon and Cornwall, when they're still sending emails like this out, are far, far away from meeting the minimum requirements of their job. Yeah, there we go. Rant over. That really, when this was sent to me today, oh, I was in a bad mood for a very long time. Just sat them making stuff at work. Just definitely come on, bastards. Like it just, if I, and I'm not even under Devon and Cornwall, right? Like, I don't even have a certificate, and like God knows what the guy that got sent that email thought. Like, wow. Um, yeah. Anyway, that's my one rant for this evening. If only. Let's see what you guys are saying. That is a very, very good point. Thank you for making that. That moist. Hmm. Uh, what about game developers who make highly detailed models of guns for games? Oftentimes, these will include internal components, etc., for animation. This could be interpreted as bad. That could potentially be best case for not doing this. Is actually games or maybe even art. Um, I'm trying to find. Here we go. So I've talked about this before, and I still need to show it on the channel, right? Like, don't I need to get round to for filming the video, right? But Blobworks, they make the VR practical shooting app. So if you've got an Oculus, I think it's just on the Oculus at the moment, but there is a a VR shooting training platform game, whatever you want to call it. And I'm trying to find. It's been a while. So the reason I know about this and also the point that I'm trying to get to, 22, is that we actually sent them a number of files because they've got the 1522. They've got the 1522 in the game, and it's actually got all the Maglo bits in it. And for all intents and purposes, it's a model of a 1522, and it's it's compatible with our models that are used on actual 1522s. So to take the game development one step further, people that are making VR training, there's various VR shooting games and training aids that have very realistic, almost I'm pretty sure Blobworks is using like proper models of certain guns to be able to do this with their function. Again, are they going to get their doors kicked in because suddenly having these 3D printable files available, it's a very, very slippery slope. Cold Vault, how can you be certain that they receive your message about lodging your guns before starting your renewal papers and then deciding FU because of the info they haven't received? How can you be certain that they receive your message about lodging your guns before starting your renewal papers? Yeah. Yeah, good point. Happy, not good optics either. No, it is. It really, really isn't. So yeah, everyone else is paying for their failings. Unbelievable. Yes, they are. Frustration. Frustration level just went up 5 points talking about this. It's ridiculous. Yeah, like I'm glad I'm not the only one that got slightly irate at all of that. No step on Snake. Devon and Cornwall are such a mess. I'm surprised they haven't been found criminally negligent. I think actually a couple of, well, a few members of them were found not criminally negligent, but it was like gross negligence or gross misconduct or something like that. There were people fired and let go from that department because of what happened in Kiev. Why they haven't faced any criminal proceedings, I don't know, because they bloody well should. They, in my mind, again, it's a difficult one, because if you make the punishment for a genuine mistake, right? Can an FEO, a firearm inquiry officer, or any entire firearms licensing department make an absolutely 100% sure decision to give somebody a certificate? I don't think you can. Life has risks, right? People make mistakes. People, we are all human, right? And I can allow for that, right? 100%. You cannot say that 100% of the time, everybody they get a certificate to, nothing bad is going to happen. Just like everybody we give a driving license to, there's still, accidents happen. But when so many just like unbelievable levels of incompetent mistakes were made with giving the person responsible for Kiem his certificates, when that level of competence, incompetence and neglect comes into play, then in my eyes, the person that okayed and advocated giving them the certificate, which would be the FEO, and ultimately, the firearms licensing manager, the chief of police. Those are the three people. The FEO effectively write their report. The firearms licensing management write their recommendation, and the chief of police makes the final decision. All three of them, in my eyes, are just as guilty in giving that person the certificate as somebody giving somebody a gun, right? It's the same thing, right? Giving somebody a certificate to buy a gun is the same thing as walking up to somebody in the street and handing them a shotgun and going, fill your boots, don't hurt anybody. And they should just be as culpable. The danger with that is, what's going to happen, even more so than what we see now. Firearms licensing departments will just shut up shop. They'll be like, well, hang on a minute, if I can go to prison for getting this wrong, I'm just not going to give out any certificates. There we go. Then there's no risk of prison. So there is this balance, but with how badly they got it wrong, with what they missed with that application, and just the negligence and incompetence all around, ignoring the guidance and this, that, and the other, like, there should be some sort of criminal aspect to that. Peter Rose, I was told by firearms department that as long as you've sent your renewal in, you're electronically covered if it passes expiry date. Can't get ammo though, so told to stock up before expiry. Whatever your firearms licensing department has been smoking uh, is probably from their evidence locker. That is not the case, right? There might be a bit of lost in translation, but even if you've sent your renewal in, when your certificate expires, unless you have a new certificate, you are no longer in lawful possession of those firearms. And it really is when the clock strikes midnight on that day of expiry, or the day after expiry, whatever way you want to look at it, you are breaking the law, right? Now, take my tinfoil hat off for a moment, or maybe put my tinfoil hat on. I really wouldn't put it past some departments to be giving out that sort of incorrect advice so that you do end up in unlawful possession of firearms, and then they can use that to not give you your certificates back. What they probably mean, if I want to give them some sort of benefit of the doubt, in terms of electronically covered, is that usually if they're not able, if you've got your renewal in with sort of plenty of time, and they're not able to process your renewal, and this again, this is going to set me off with Devon and Cornwall even more. The usual process is to give you, I think it's a Section 7 extension, right, or a Section 7 temporary permit or certificate, or whatever. But basically, they hand you a temporary certificate and goes, look, this certificate's valid for 6 months, right? Hopefully, we'll be able to get your renewal done by then. Why Devon and Cornwall aren't doing that? Again, it's like, sorry, we're going to go off and play, PR stunt doing rapid Black Friday variations. And we're going to tell people tough, on the other hand, we're going to tell people tough tips. We haven't got the time to do renewals. So you've got to throw in all your guns and, get them with somebody else quick, when they have an easy solution, which is just issue a temporary certificate. Anyway. But yeah, in terms of what you've written there, as long as you've sent in your renewal and you're electronically covered, even if it passes expiry date, that is not the case. 100% not the case. When your certificate expires, unless you have a new certificate or a temporary certificate, you will no longer be in lawful possession of the guns. And that is the main issue here. That's why we get calls late at night from people going, please, can I come down to the shop now and deposit some guns, because as of tomorrow I'm a criminal. No snap on snake. 1 mistake is an accident, 2 is a coincidence, 3 is a pattern. Oh, and there were more than 3. Absolutely. Elite Hyper 31. Do you know when the Magload sale will be on for Black Friday? Come on, guys. We're at least a few weeks away at the, from now. Well, I'll give you a hint. It's definitely going to be on Black Friday. Like, for those of you that aren't aware, watch sales fall through the roof from from this point on for the rest of the month. But for those of you that are a fan of Magload goodies, if you've been a fan of them and a avid customer for a while, you will know that we don't do sales. We don't do discounts. There's some here and there exceptions, but you've either got to be part of a very select few people, or really go hunting out there for it. We don't, as a rule, do sales, and as a rule, generally we don't do discounts. Apart from one time of the year, which is Black Friday, and we almost like to pride ourselves that we don't just do like a free shipping on all orders over 20 £20, or here's a free key ring with every order. Like, when we do it, we like to think we do it properly. And yes, we are approaching Black Friday, and yes, we will be doing Black Friday discounts and deals and stuff like that. I cannot confirm what the discounts, what the deals, what the Black Friday campaign will be this year, mainly because we still haven't figured it out for ourselves. So I can't say what doesn't yet exist, just like the magazines. So moving on, but there will be Black Friday. We are a little bit more planned than that. We have been talking about it the last couple of weeks. I believe, from memory, we will be starting our Black Friday on the 22nd of November, a little earlier. Obviously, the actual Black Friday is on the 24th. There's a load of different reasons for doing it that way. I think last year we started it early on the Thursday. So, but we will shout about it. We won't be quiet about it. That's for certain. Um, but yeah, there'll be some good deals about. It will be worth. And like we know there are customers that we literally only see once a year pop up on the order system, and that's because of the Black Friday. But that's what it's there for. If you can be patient and you want a deal, wait for Black Friday. It's just like anything. Amazon are known for it as well. Even Apple. Magload calendar this year. Actually, there's still time. We always leave it too late. I am going to send my thank you, Daniel. I am going to send myself an email. And speaking of the devil, and Connor's will message. Just get back to him. I am going to send myself an email because literally, if we are going to do it, we need to do it now. And we have the photos. Oh my, do we have the photos? Let's. I wonder if it's in time to get it with for Black Friday as well. Right, I've just sent myself an email, and any of you that know me well will know literally the only way to get me to do something is to email me. So I even have to email myself to get myself to do stuff. That's how serious I take my emails. Maybe the mags will be included in the Black Friday sales. Do you know? I think in terms of a PR move, that would probably be even worse than what Devon and Cornwall have just done. No, I can assure you. In actual fact, we've started telling people this anyway, so it's not a secret. The price of the magazines, once they are released, once they are here, will be going up. So currently, I think they're £45 a magazine. When that is the pre-order price, right? We haven't changed with it because obviously it's just been so long, and we haven't got to releasing them yet. So all the time they're at pre-order, they stay at the same price. But as soon as they hit the market, they will be increasing in price. Because actually over the time that it's taken us to, with the magazines, the price of all the other magazines have gone up, the price of living has gone up, and all of this. That's I'm not saying that to say go and place your pre-order, but that's just the bare bones facts of it. So the last thing we are going to be doing is discounting the magazines straight after releasing them. We are edging ever closer. Arian, marketing campaign is going to be sick for Black Friday. I really hope so. With any luck, I've got Christmas presents to get for myself. Absolutely, that's the way it works. I usually just buy myself my own presents, which usually just boils down to, well, nowadays it's either cigars or watches, one or the other. I'm not at the point now where I can regularly buy myself cars as presents, but one day, hopefully. Make a magload calendar, but have it done in collaboration with weapon outfitters. He has great style. Will we get a Merry Magmus this year? Funnily enough, we have talked about this. I don't believe we've actually ever done it, but we have sort of. Well, we've talked about doing like the 12 days of Christmas. The reason we've never done it before is it's always right off the back of Black Friday for us, and we're still recovering. But it doesn't hurt to expand things a little bit. And whilst we are strict on discounts only at Black Friday, it's close to being Black Friday still. So maybe, we only do deals, sort of end of November to beginning of January. Like that's the one time that we do deals. I don't know. Does Magload actually sell mags? That's either a cutting cutting slight, or a horrendously funny unintentional gag. Does Magload actually sell mags? Sort of. We sort of sell magazines. Yeah, we are in development of a universal AR-15 2.2 magazine, to work with the likes of the CMMG guns, 1522, Titmans, Chris Defiance, all of that. It's just been a very, very long, convoluted, and painful road to this point. I got her to call Basque, and she spoke with a guy, Simon, who advised her accordingly at Peter. Oh, you're having a conversation with somebody else. Pre-order now still available. Yes. The pre-orders are still available on the. I just hope the reason we've kept the pre-orders, despite the fact that it's been far longer than we ever intended, is that we know, as like we have talked about, because it's taken so long, we've talked about removing the option to pre-order because we still don't have a date of when they're going to be released. So maybe stop taking pre-orders because we can't give any firm dates. But we know as soon as we remove that pre-order page, people will just lose their minds thinking that we've given up and taken their money, and we're going to like, no, what magazines? We never pre-ordered magazines. So we've kept it open. The magazines will come by hook or by crook. They will come, and they will be the best bloody AR-22 magazines that you've ever seen. They sort of have to at this point, but that was always what we were going for. But yes, the pre-order, if you go on to magload.co.uk and you put magazine in the search box, the pre-orders will come in. I will say, it does actually say expected delivery in November. I keep on meaning to change that. That was actually meant to be last November. Hello, darkness, my old friend. Why am I searching Magload? I want magazine. So here we go. This is the pre-order. Let me bring this. Stop sharing that and share. Where is it? There we go. Share screen, Magload. That's it. If you are still interested in getting the queue, and I do just want to point out, like, yes, we are in no position to point fingers, and yes, we are still incredibly sorry and grateful for all of your patience. But I would just like to point out the only reason we ever opened them up for pre-orders is because we received so many requests from people to open them up for pre-orders. Like we really didn't want to open them up for pre-orders because even at that point we thought we had a rough idea of when they would be available. But yes, so it's your fault. Actually, it's all of your fault. 100% your fault. Just going to slowly disappear out the back door. But yes, if you want to pre-order what we are aiming to be the best 2.2 AR magazine on the market, then this is where you want to go. And you can pre-order, and you will get it in the first batch. Everybody that's pre-ordered we will be sending them all out to everybody that pre-ordered on the same day. You will get them all at the same time. But there we go. I'm waiting for the ES cigar box one day. Maybe I'm already. I don't think I told you, Daniel. I don't just have the humidor anymore. I've got a Tupperdoor. Yes, I technically have two humidors because I have an addictive personality, and when I find a new hobby, I don't just walk into it. I run, just like shooting and starting your own YouTube channel. Like, you know, in for a penny, in for a pound. Quickie, is that, yeah, Quickie, thanks for joining. Appreciate it, and glad you enjoyed it. What about an ES quad piece? No, that's not on. That is really not on the list, to be honest. Although the olive drab caps arrived, and the person, let me go. Yes, cap. There we go. Have you got? He sent me. So the olive drab caps came in, and I was genuinely going to I was going to grab one and wear it tonight, because despite the in-joke at work, I actually really like, do quite like olive drab. There we go. It actually almost looks like slightly bronzy. So yes, the ES olive drab cap is well, it's not actually available on the website because I haven't updated the website. But if you do want an ES olive drab cap, then you can order the. I don't know if I've actually said this on the stream yet, but all of the ES merchandise is now on Magload. It used to, like, if you go on EnglishShooting.org, which it used to always be on, it would literally direct you to the Magload website, because why run two e-commerce platforms? We've already got an e-commerce platform. So if you want any you know, ES or even Magload swag, and actually maybe you want a Magload tactical Christmas stocking, because we're getting to that part of the year. If you want anything, any swag, ES patches, ES caps, if you do want the olive drab, or even if you want a white ES cap with the black logo, just buy this and leave a note, and we will, yeah, because I haven't updated it yet. The white ones, we are waiting for delivery, so there'll be a little delay on that one. But if you want stickers, the Magpack tactical stocking bundle, or any other swag or accessories or whatever, yeah, you can go onto Magload and go merchandise and accessories, and they will all be there. But yeah, if you fancy an OD green cap, we now have them, and it supports the channel and keeps the lights on, which is appreciated. Callum, I'll email you a reminder about the poll idea, please. That's like genuinely. If I always say email is always the best way. New hobby every so often isn't that ADHD. It usually takes me at least a couple of years to find a new hobby. The last few years have been watches. The problem is I just don't get rid of a hobby. I just collect hobbies. My collection is hobbies. English shooting, can Magload mags take abuse? Can they take abuse? Oh yes, they can. It is going to take me far too long to find this, because we end up sending ourselves a ridiculous amount of media. I swear I've shown this on stream before, but this will be one aspect of our massive marketing campaign when these magazines dropped. Jesus, we send ourselves quite a lot of videos, and it was so long ago that, you know, I'm having to scroll quite a way back. It will be worth it. I mean, the short answer and quick answer is yes, the magazines can take abuse. This is also for us, you know, what we want to to be able to offer is something that is better in every. When we tend to do something, we look to do it better in every single way than what's currently available, because otherwise, sort of, what's the point of doing it? Come on, where is it? It'll be worth it. There is so many memes. And quite a lot that should never see the light of day. Oh, it was quite a long time ago. If I don't get it very quickly, I'm going to give up. And I'm getting very close to giving up, and I'm going to give up. Basically, if anybody's been to the Magload unit, our office is on the first floor, and you've got the main workshop floor on the ground floor. It's all a concrete floor. We threw one of the few magazines we've had off of the injection molders off of the top of the stairs, direct. So I mean, you know, quite a high distance, higher than you are ever going to feasibly drop your magazine, and it just bounced. And it generally took us a second to see which corner it landed on. Just a very small sort of compression in that corner, like hardly noticeable. So yes, they do exist. They can stand up to some abuse. Black Guinea Pig, thanks for thanks for joining. Can you make Olive ODG and FDE? No. So olive drab. There is some olive drab out in the wild, right? But we can't do it consistently. It just doesn't work for us. Still haven't been able to nail that color consistently to be able to release it as a full line. FDE, I think we might be there, but it's one of these things. First of all, I'm always pushing to reduce the amount of colors, and it takes a lot to convince me to increase the amount of colors, that's for sure. And why would we just release FDE? Like, there has to be like all the tactical colors, for a lack of better phrase. There are a few FDE magload parts out there. We do have a very small batch of parts that have already been done FDE that are sat there, that we're deliberating of whether we turn them black or we actually release them. But there are a few people out in the wild that's been lucky enough to be able to extract some FDE parts. If you are interested in either any, I'm going to really regret saying this, if you are interested in any OD olive drab or FDE, drop me an email. I'll see how generous I'm feeling, and I'll see what we can do. But there better be a case of Pepsi and maybe even a cigar in it for me. Unless they are bought by a certain gent that doesn't get warranty. That is still in our warranty terms of service, isn't it? I'm pretty sure. Yep. Yes, it is. So this is the live Magload website. Limited lifetime warranty. Magload will warrant that the above products are free from defects in manufacture and workmanship for the life of the product. This does not cover wear and tear, abuse, pappy, negligence, or accidental damage. See below. So just as so our warranty is a limited lifetime warranty, but Magload will discretionally consider a crash replacement policy on a case-by-case basis in the event of a refused warranty or product damage by accident or through abuse negligence. Contact us to learn more. I can count on one hand the amount of times that we haven't warrantied something. It's either been after 3 or 4 back-to-back breaks, or and it's like, no, you really just need to not do that with your gear. Or it's, people have done some very, very silly things. We keep on talking about doing like the wall of shame, or like the post of shame, because, oh god, like some of the things that we have to deal with, it's just like, yeah, no. But we always choose to stay professional and never disclose any of the silly questions. There's no such thing as a silly question, only silly answers. Never be scared to email us with a what you may think is a silly question, because trust me, there's something been sillier said. But yes, there is one person that is completely excluded from our warranty, and funnily enough, he hasn't requested anything for warranty in a very long time, so it worked, didn't it? Sorry, off topic, but does anybody know of a 22 WMR semi-auto LBP? Yes, the Keltec, the Caliber Innovations are bringing them in. Hopefully very soon. Why am I still showing that? If ODG exists, I am keen. Ditto for FDE. Embrace the tactical. I bet it sells. Yes, that's exactly what Connors and Paul says. But we can't do the ODG consistently. That's the issue. Will the mags be okay to spray paint? Yeah, the magazines will not be 3D printed. They're being injection molded. You'll be able to do exactly the same with them as any other mag, just like, P mags or OEM 1522 mags. You can Cerakote them and all of that. How many Magload mags can fit inside of me? That's something I never want to find out. Ever, in any situation. Even if my life depends on it, I don't want to find that out. And on that incredibly grim note, I think I'm going to have to call it there and go and sit in the shower, turn it to cold, and shiver for hours to try and get that out of my head. But yeah, anyway. Thank you ever so much for joining. I hope you've enjoyed it this evening. I apologize for leaving it on that note, but needs must. But there we go. Before you all head off, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you are subscribed, and we'll be back same place, same time next week. Have a fantastic weekend, everyone, and of course, as always, hope to see you soon.